You're listening to the Inside the Mix podcast with your host, Marc Matthews.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Inside the Mix podcast. If you are a new listener, a big welcome. Make sure you hit follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe and that notification bell so you get updated when a new episode drops. And to the returning listeners, as always, a huge welcome back. So I was working on a project the other day and I wanted to add some more attack to a snare. And one thing I like to use is the Transient shaper by kilohertz or kilohertz, however it's pronounced. Basically what that does is you can manipulate the folder of a signal, manipulate the transients basically. And I was wondering, does Logic have something similar? So I went through the different folders, and lurking in the dynamics folder is one I forgot about and one often overlooked, and that is the enveloper. So I've got the enveloper open here, and basically what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to manipulate the attack of this snare, and I'm going to add some snap. Okay, and you can do this with other instruments as well. So if you've got strings or plucky instruments, you can just emphasize those initial transients. And basically what I suggest doing is leaving the threshold at -100. That's the point. The threshold, any signal that exceeds the threshold is going to have its attack and release times manipulated. I leave the look ahead at 0 milliseconds. And then we have the attack time. And that is the time it takes for the signal to reach the maximum gain level from the threshold. So a good place to start is about 20 milliseconds. I think the default is 15, but I generally start it at 20, but you can time it to the track. And then we've got gain. Okay, so we can apply gain to that initial transient. So when I say initial transient, I'm referring to the attack phase, the attack portion of the signal. So I'm going to play this snare on repeat, and then I'm going to gradually bring in the enveloper. I say bring in, it is already in there. I'm going to increase the gain on this enveloper and thus increase that attack part of the signal. So I'm going to get it up to anywhere between sort of like 60 to 80%, and you'll start to hear the difference. I actually finished on 90%, but it's actually quite exaggerated, and it'd be more than I'd want to use, but I wanted to make it pronounced so you could hear it. And then what we could do is we could use the time element of the attack phase and just expand that, and you're sort of like opening it up, and you're bringing more of the tail into the attack phase, and in particular this gain that's been applied. So I'm going to increase the time, and you'll start to hear more of the sort of tail of the snare come in. So you can hear that thwack straight away. So you'd want to bring that down. I mean, that's at 90 milliseconds. So I'm just I'll drag it back so you can hear the difference again. I mean, for me, I quite liked it the other way. So let's A-B it. And I'm going to leave the enveloper on, and then I'll bypass it. So this is with it on. And this is with it off. Now, again, it's at 90%. I'd probably drag that down, but I'm overemphasizing so you can hear it here. But what I would recommend you do and pay attention to is you can see the signal is blasting above the 0 here in my track. 32-bit floating point, so it's not clipping. But you want to use this output level and reduce that down because you kind of want it to be where it was before. So with this bypassed, -14.6 with the enveloper on at 90%. Let's drag it down a bit. I'm going to drag it down to 60. And then with it off. And then you can just drag the output level down as well. So we're compensating for that increase in signal at the output level here by reducing it. And you can go the other way, folks. So if you want to mute the initial attack of a signal, you can drag the gain slider into minus percentages. So let's give that a go. So I'm going to start at 60 and then I'm going to drag it down. And there you go. That's at minus 100%. You can hear it's totally muted that attack. So the enveloper, that is the attack phase or the attack portion of the enveloper there. There's a release as well, and I'll do a video on that later. But that is the attack part. So we can add snap and attack and punch to those quick transient signals. So there we go, the unsung hero of the dynamics section in Logic Pro, the enveloper. Give it a go, folks. Add that thwack, that snap and attack to those transients. But before you go, folks, if you want to quadruple your music production and songwriting output like I did at the tail end of 2023 with my EP, head over to synthmusicmastering.com/free and download my producer growth scorecard and take on my 28-day challenge. I challenge you to gamify your music production, songwriting and mixing and release more music.